All right.
Okay. All right, everyone. Welcome back to the latest edition and episode of Spinster versus Spinster, which is our friendly debate mini series that Jess and I like to do. Lighthearted, casual conversation about horror movies. And Jess, what are we covering today?
Well, not only is this a special Halloween episode because it is Sunday, October 23rd. It is the final week of October, and we're moving into Halloween week. So not only are we doing a Halloween special Spinster versus Spinster, but also we are talking about the Halloween franchise. And the reason why we were talking about this franchise is because one of us thinks it's overrated and the other one doesn't.
And on the internet, folks, you all thought it was going to be me that thought the franchise was overrated, but that is untrue. Okay. Also, what inspired this super fun episode was Jess was in Toronto visiting me in the summertime, and she said this very inflammatory statement, and it made me laugh, and I was shocked, and I was like, we need to talk about this. And so, folks, what did she say? She said to me, to my face, I would rather watch any Friday the 13th movie over a Halloween movie. Wow. Wow. Scathing review of the Halloween franchise.
I will not deny that. And I will still stand by that comment. That has not changed. I would rather watch any of the Friday the 13th films over a Halloween film. The only time I watch Halloween is at Halloween.
That's fair. Okay. So now we'll get into it. So I think we'd start off with our quote opening statement, like a brief, like just a general statement of our defense today. So, okay. Jess, a brief overall statement, then we're going to get into like the OG series, the Rob Zombie films, and then the new David Gordon Green reboot that is still like right now, Halloween Ends is in theaters. So
currently,
we're going to go from 70s all the way to literally 2022. So, Jess, first opening statement on why you think the Halloween franchise is overrated.
And go. I find this franchise is overrated. It always lands at my bottom three when I say my top when it comes to my favorite franchises from the 80s. It's Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and Halloween. I find it overrated because it is so inconsistent with everything from the get-go, from number 2. Things are changing. The stories are always changing. Michael Myers' origins is always changing. And it's like not consistent. And it's like you have this love-hate relationship with this franchise. I have points about it that I love and that like and I will go to because like, yeah, I can agree with that stuff like that. Dr. Loomis, I will die on that hill that I love Dr. Loomis.
I would literally kill for Dr. Loomis.
He's probably one of the only reasons why I go back and watch these films sometimes is because I'm like, well, I'm going to get some amazing Donald Pleasance, Dr. Loomis one-liners, and he's just so serious. Yeah, and of course, we get the final girl, Laurie. She kicks off that trend for us and very well-written character. But by God, they butcher her story time and time again that you just don't get this consistent end for Laurie Strode, and you're just like disappointed. And I just like, I don't always, I get bored. I get bored with this series. I get watching and then I get distracted. Like today when I was watching my only 3 that I enjoy, or technically 2 because we're only talking about 1 and 2 of the franchise. I was making a pumpkin amigurumi. I needed to keep my mind. I needed to keep busy to keep me watching these films. So that is my opening argument. It is not consistent.
And that is very fair because I agree. It is not consistent. It's wildly all over the place often. Absolutely. And you're going to love that. You're going to hate it. It's not going to work for you. So opening statement. Why I think this franchise is not overrated and it deserves the acclaim and popularity that it gets. It's iconic. Number 1. Halloween from 1978 is a stone cold classic of slasher movies from horror movies. it changed the game and really kicked off and kickstarted the slasher series, like the whole slasher genre of the 80s. The John Carpenter of it all, the master of horror, guy who looks like my dad, that iconic theme that even casual horror fans know the Halloween theme.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Michael Myers, iconic killer of the 80s. Our final girl, Laurie Strode, again, icons all over the place. Secondarily, this movie is called Halloween and it surrounds Halloween, the horror fans' holiday. Pumpkins, jack-o'-lanterns galore, fall. It screams the like autumn, like crisp autumn air, crunchy leaves, spooky time. So it's all around a treat. Again, generally speaking, this franchise can be quite wonderful. So that's my opening statement. Let's get into the OG series.
Let's do
what
it.
I will say before we jump into that is we actually have a full I Spin in Your podcast episode on Halloween up until Halloween 5, because we did the horror icons of the 1980s series. So we only covered the 80s releases of the movies.
Yeah.
So I don't think we necessarily need to get too deep into that. That is a fantastic episode, actually still one of my favorites, because it hits on a lot of really interesting aspects of the original series. So folks, I would say go listen to that for sure. You don't have to, you can listen to this later, listen to this first and then go back, whichever, but it's a really great companion piece. But it was, one of my favorites, and we get really kind of deep, dark, and dirty with that the OG series. So folks, listen to that. OG series. So we're not discussing Season of the Witch. We decided prior to this that would, I mean, it's not a slasher movie. It's not the Michael Myers. It's not the quote Halloween franchise as we know it, but that can kind of jump into the whole inconsistency of this all. We know John Carpenter wanted this to be an anthology series. Shit went awry. Here we are.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because because I watched 1, 2, and 3 this morning, and at the end of 2, Dr. Loomis talks about the whole history of Samhain and the Druids and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay. So they were leading up to, what's going to happen in Santa Marta with the whole shamrock industry and stuff like that. So it's like, okay, so it was building its way, but it didn't. I can understand people got angry because Michael Myers wasn't in the film. I get it. You go to see a Halloween movie, you've seen 1 and 2, you're expecting to see Michael Myers and Laurie Strode fight it out again because that's their tradition. But then you just get this glorious film surrounding Tom Atkins.
Icon.
It is Halloween, kids running around in masks and stuff like that. There's that extra peril of these kids gonna all die in masks. That's pretty, it's pretty nihilistic. These people going for these children, right? The Stonehenge, the folklore elements of it. So it's its own special movie, and I know that people over the last 5-6 years have really come around back to it because they're just like, it's a cult classic in its own right. So
I saw somebody literally on Twitter today be like, oh my God, Season of the Witch doesn't even have Michael Myers in it. It's the worst. And I was like, where have you been?
Oh my God.
But also it came out in what, 1985? This is
literally,
okay, folks. If you're just learning this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not gatekeeping, but.
Yeah. But come on.
Wow. Somebody's still having this discussion?
Yeah. And of course, you walk away from this film with that lovely song in your head. Happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Even today, I was like, wait, how many days is it till Halloween? 9 more days till Halloween, Halloween, Halloween.
Oh my God. We said we were going to talk about it. We're talking about it. But it is a wonderful, Halloween as in Halloween season themed movie.
Exactly. There you go.
So the OG series. So on my end, I think there are overarching in this franchise, but talking about the OG series, there's some low points and there are high points for me. And I think the high points are very high, which make up for the low points for me. I think overall the OG series are very well crafted slasher films, very well crafted.
And you're talking 1 to
5.
Where? 1 to 5. Okay.
Yes, that's the OG series. Sorry, actually goes
Because
up
I would say
to
like H2, like you got
yeah. Sorry, all the
6,
way up
H2O,
to
Resurrection.
Resurrection.
Okay,
So
okay,
1
okay.
to like 8, whatever. I'm not
Yeah,
doing math.
there you go.
So so again, high points and low points, but generally that OG series I think are really, really great, entertaining, well-crafted slasher movies. And historically, Jess, you are not a slasher movie fan.
I am, yes, historically, I am not a slasher movie fan. We talked about this literally like not even 10, 20 minutes ago with the on Elm Street Clubhouse discussion. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Kelly is the slasher subject matter expert of the Spinsters of Horror. I'm more cerebral.
Yeah.
I like my cerebral horror. However, I do enjoy absurd films. And that's probably one of the reasons why I like Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th so much is they're absurd. The kills are just absurd. And this is another thing we talked about is that these films, we tend to remember the deaths of all these people who die in these franchise movies. I don't remember a lot of the deaths in Halloween. I forget off the time because they're not memorable to me. Because to me, Michael Myers is not a memorable character. Like the shape is not memorable to me. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a plus. Maybe that helps him get by in society and stuff like that. But
are you saying that Michael Myers, the icon Michael Myers, is not memorable?
no, not to me.
Whoa.
Like
Fair. Okay. Michael Myers, or
okay.
The Shape, as he's called in the OG movie. So, like I said, we do have a full episode on this. But what I love about the OG franchise, the OG series is the darkness in it. And I know when we talked about it, Jess, that was something that made you uncomfortable and you weren't really a super fan of, which kind of goes into your I love Friday the 13th because it's outrageous, kind of over the top and absurd. Nightmare on Elm Street has the rubber reality. It has the imaginative surrealism, kind of like dream kills and stuff like that.
Too close to true crime, too real for me.
Yes, exactly. Yes, no, it's a really, really great point. And it's why one of the reasons why I love it so much, because a lot of slasher movies aren't going to be absurd. They're going to be somebody stalking you, the POV shots, stalking, lurking, and then just stabbing you, which is like so intimate and so painful. And it's a slasher for a reason, because they use weapons that like hack and slash. You know, they're axes, they're machetes, they're going to be kitchen knives. So I love that about it, especially a lot in the OG series, that there is a lot of darkness in it. And we get, again, super deep into that in our episode. So I frankly really love that about it.
And I think that's what makes me uncomfortable in the series. But I think this series would be stronger if it didn't start bringing in the supernatural element to it. So, you know, with Friday the 13th, and I feel like even with Nightmare on Elm Street, and even with Friday the 13th, we are introduced to a supernatural element of these antagonists from the get-go. Michael Myers, no. We are told that he's just an evil individual. You know, he is just evil. Like, that is it. Like, Dr. Loomis screams it all the time. He is evil. Kill him. Anytime anyone talks about Michael Myers, he's like, he's evil. Like, not even like you should not be anyone's psychiatrist ever. I shot him 6 times. Great. But then later on in the franchise, like in the earlier franchise, they start to introduce these supernatural elements to Michael Myers and the Cult of Thorn. And I'm like, really? Why? Why are you doing this? Be consistent with the story. Stick with the darkness. Yeah, the darkness makes me uncomfortable because it's more of a real experience for women. And we talked about this with stalking and obsession.
Yeah.
But then that's where I like the franchise, because then we see Laurie Strode as an individual, as a character, dealing with that, you know, both in the moment and then later on the trauma of it. And I talked about it later when we compared H4O, which we'll talk later, to H2O, and the story of Laurie and how she deals with the PTSD and the trauma, because that's a real experience that women experience. But then so it's like you get like this like good point, like you get these like, it's like there's these misses. I want to say like it goes and go away, and all of a sudden it's like goes this way, and it's like, well, and then all of a sudden Laurie Strode's story changes as well. So then that inconsistency. Sorry, so at the end of the day, it's just an inconsistency. There's no consistency with Michael Myers' story, with Laurie's story.
Yeah, they try to do a variety of things, take it in different directions. Like,
Yeah,
you can just have a basic slasher movie for 10 movies. If you want to do that, you can. That's Friday the 13th.
exactly.
But if you want to get creative and go with it, I kind of like Curse of Michael Myers. I do kind of like
Okay.
this Cult of Thorn, kind of again bringing in this element, because it's like at first he's evil, just like
Yeah.
this pure embodiment of evil.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Yeah, that's spooky. That's scary. Evil is never fun. Well,
Mm-hmm.
not always. And then it's like, oh, now he's Laurie's. We find out in Halloween 2, the sequel, that Michael is Laurie's brother. So
Yeah.
there's like that family element. He's coming after his family. Then we carry that into 4 and 5, with Jamie Lloyd, little Danielle Harris's character in 4 and 5, because she's the last remaining Strode. So he's got to
Mm-hmm.
kill her.
Laurie's daughter, right? She's apparently
Yes, yeah,
Laurie's daughter.
exactly. So and then we get into 6, bringing in the Cult of Thorn, which is interesting, but then we never get to see it again. It's not really well fleshed out, but it's kind of interesting, and why it ties into, Michael always coming around on
Mm-hmm.
Halloween, and maybe it's a little muddled. I mean, like, we only get really one movie to explain any of it,
But
and
then
then
why
it's
is he?
left forever.
But then why is he so obsessed with this one family and just going after his
Yes.
own
And then
family
there's that too.
the entire time?
Absolutely.
We're like, why
Yeah.
just them? Like
Yeah.
like we understand why Freddy Krueger goes after the Elm Street kids.
Yeah.
We understand why, Jason Voorhees has an issues with, like, people at Camp Crystal Lake and stuff like that, and just campers.
Yeah.
We don't really
Yeah.
understand why Michael Myers has this weird obsession around his family.
Yeah.
I appreciate that Rob Zombie later on gives us some explanation as to why the family becomes such a center point of Michael Myers.
Mm-hmm.
But then that gets muffled down the line too, because once again they try to pull in that supernatural element of Michael Myers, and I'm just like, start off with supernatural and then connect to the family. Don't connect to the family and then all of a sudden introduce like a supernatural element to it to explain why Michael Myers cannot be killed.
Right. But I guess you kind of have to bring in some kind of reasoning why this person or being can't die. So it gets like and that's the thing about franchises and these slasher franchises. Freddy can work because he lives in our dreams, so that's like a very metaphysical type thing.
Yeah.
But if you want to cash in and do sequel after sequel after sequel, we kind of have to throw something else in, freshen it up. So sticking with the OG series. So I feel like in the OG series, there's a lot of characters that you can care about, which I think is not always the case in slasher movies. Of course, Laurie Strode gets talked about a lot. Jamie and Rachel in 4 and 5. Also, Rachel's best friend Kelly, I like a lot because she's such this fun-loving girl. I would say Laurie's son in Halloween H2O. I think there are elements where they do really create some really wonderful characters that we care about, and we do get to hear more of their stories and see some kind of their side of the story and what they're living with and dealing with as this aftermath of Michael Myers coming after them. So again, not typical in a slasher movie. It's definitely not always happening in this franchise as a general whole. But most of the movies, we care about these characters, and oftentimes they're reoccurring characters. Halloween Resurrection lacks all of this because we don't give a fuck about anybody in that movie, and for me, that's one of the lowest points.
Like, she does all she does at the end just to die.
So yeah, the OG series. I would say my favorite sequel is Halloween H2O. Okay. That's the one I watched the most. That's the one I grew up with this whole series anyways, like as they came out. It's been interesting that, I mean, I'm born in 83, so I wasn't really around when Halloween was in the theaters. Yeah. But from the 90s and onwards, like, I watched the original series and then was around for when each new iteration was released. So I find that really exciting for me because I don't really have that with a lot of other franchises minus Scream. I saw like all of those in the theater. That was like my series that I grew up with. But so yeah, I'd say Halloween H2O is my favorite sequel. Out of the OG series, Jess, what are your like high points or low points, if anything? If there are any high points?
Well, like I said, to me, the high point is the character of Laurie Strode. We get introduced to her in 1, 2, and I like H2O as well. Like, I like that story because you can see a character who is dealing with the actual real reality of what it's like to be someone's obsession, to be stalked, to have this family trauma that is carried with you, and you have to keep carrying it with you.
Yeah.
You get this interesting story along the way,
Yeah.
and that's a high point to me. Like, I, as someone who deals with trauma and PTSD and stuff like that, it's good to see that representation on the screen. And I like, as like so like those 3 films, I like that completeness, like, there. But then when you
That's
start
fair.
pulling in like 4, 5, and 6, and you get these other, and I'm like, now it's too much. Like, I don't remember those ones, or unfortunately they're not memorable for me. The only reasons why those ones are memorable for me is Dr. Loomis, because she's just ridiculous as a character throughout the entirety of the series. It's hyped up, and I also just really like Donald Pleasance as an actor. Anything I've seen him in, I'm just like, ooh, this is gonna be fun, because like he has these memorable lines as his character actor.
Yes.
So those are my high points. And like, I will always recognize the original film for what it did for the horror genre, and I always recognize what it did to bring in that, how iconic it was, and to bring horror to the mainstream, right? Deborah Hill, the way she wrote her characters, and they're relatable. Like, I was thinking about that again today when the teenagers are talking. You're just like, oh, the dialogue is just so good, it's relatable, but then it does eventually get lost along the way. And then I think about, like, if Carpenter, who is well known for wanting to do trilogies, if if Halloween 3 season, which was technically supposed to be a trilogy, would we have had the introduction of the Michael Myers supernatural element brought into there? And how maybe Laurie Strode's family is connected to the individuals at the Shamrock Industry. That's just a way out there theory or something like that too. But
John Carpenter wanted to be an anthology series, not a trilogy.
Yeah,
but that you could almost think of that as like a little mini kind of trilogy. But I like your point about like Halloween 1, 2, and H2O is a really good kind of like well-rounded. I agree, definitely. So Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis, Laurie Strode, 3 movies, high points. I definitely would agree with you there. High points are 1, 4, 5, and H2O, which is 7. Those are my top movies from the OG franchise. Besides, I watch 4 and 5 usually like back to back as a double feature at Halloween. And like Halloween is just a staple at Halloween.
Well, and what I like, and another, like, a high point of the series that I like that you don't necessarily always get is you get the next day. I always like, and that's one of the reasons why, like, I don't
love continuations.
I like continuations. So I like to see that the next night we see what Laurie is experiencing the next night. And I know that 4 and 5 do the same thing, where like you have her experience,
continuation.
And we do the same thing, like Rob Zombie does the same thing. We did it again in the new Halloween series. So I appreciate that it does that. But just for the love of God, stay consistent with your stories. Like,
when you have new people doing the movies, it's just, you're not going to.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about that earlier, a little bit about Nightmare on Elm Street. You bring in a new director and it's going to be kind of its own thing. It's going to have its own voice. It's going to be its own thing. It's not, unless you're
but there's still like an essence that stays with those movies.
Sometimes, yes. Yeah. There's going to be an essence. I would say that there's still an essence. I would disagree. Okay. I think there's an essence. Inconsistencies, yes. Essence, yes. I mean, we all can't be Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven for Scream, minus Kevin Williamson was not there in 3.
Mm-hmm. But that's why I don't like 3.
Yeah. But it can change, right? So it's really important. I get that. I totally would understand. I understand your reasonings for the consistency. I know that is like a really big thing for you. I'm less particular about it.
Yeah.
Let's move into Rob Zombie's reimagining, remake. So Halloween 1 and 2. You can start us off.
All right. So I honestly stayed away from this, like, whenever, like, watching these a while ago, because like everyone just, Rob Zombie for me is really known for this type of, I don't want to say gorehound, but what's that? It's a type of film.
Grindhouse.
Thank you.
Yes.
I feel like Rob Zombie has a very much Grindhouse style. And I'll never forget one of the reasons why I didn't want to watch it too is like they were all of a sudden giving Michael Myers a backstory. And I'm like, well, we didn't give him a backstory in 1 and 2 and that worked for everyone else. Why are we giving him a backstory now? I find what I enjoy, my high points for these two films is the backstory to Michael Myers. I like the fact that we do give Michael Myers a backstory and we start with the very human element of Michael Myers, but then he does the same thing that they do in the original and they start giving it supernatural element in the second one, and I hate that. So like I love the first one. The first I don't want to say I don't love. That's a very strong word. I enjoy the first Rob Zombie Halloween because we get the backstory, we get the human despair, the drama. We can understand why Michael Myers has the feelings that he has towards his family, why he has this obsession. Cool. But then we get into the second one. That's all almost out the window. And it's a supernatural element. And he's following around his mother with a fucking unicorn. What is that?
It's just a white horse, not a unicorn.
Whatever.
Details matter.
Okay, true. Details matter. But I don't why. Why are we doing this now? And so like to me is and then like I feel like this was also an engine of just seeing that a lot of gore. Want to see a more violent Michael Myers, go watch these ones because you're going to get a more violent Michael Myers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I rewatched a bunch of movies that I hadn't seen in a long time. These two movies I haven't watched in, oh God, so long. And I'm really fucking glad I did. Because
I'd like to hear your thoughts because
I loved them. I do not love the weird, like esoteric, like dream sequences shit that went on in the second one. I can forgive that. It's weird. Not needed. It just was not needed. I don't know if he just wanted to throw in his wife a little bit more. I don't want to be that person, but she is in everything that he does. So, but I'll say, I understand these can be very divisive in the sense of a lot of people didn't like that origin story because we take away the fact, oh, he's just evil, which is a fine blanket statement that makes it spooky, scary, but, and I like that. Again, I like a lot of things. I like him being just plain evil, sure, but it's kind of lazy. Here, I agree with you. I like this human element. We get to see this origin story. We see him escape. We see him go after Laurie. He's scary. He's menacing. He's fucking mean in this. And I am so happy that I did rewatch these because I will definitely champion his vision. It retains the darkness and the emotion, I think, from the OG series. And I really think that generally speaking, these are what remakes should look like. It's going to retain aspects of the original series, the original kind of vision, and then put your spin on it, put your style into it. Because yes, Rob Zombie has his own style. And we see this in this movie a little bit. We see it a little bit more in the second one too, but like this like very not less grindhouse like music video, like very like bold. It's daring, it's brutal, it's traumatic. And I really, really loved these two movies put together. The cast, Brad Dourif, we got Daniel Harris, homage as Annie. Oh my goodness, like the ending of the first Rob Zombie Halloween is to me very reminiscent of Sally Hardesty at the end of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. She is just like we thought killed Michael Myers, bloodied face, screaming, laughing wildly. I really need to commend Scout Taylor Compton as this new kind of Laurie Strode. She was, in my mind, fantastic. And also a young actor, right? And then we see her, I think it's about a year later in the second one, and you see that change that's happened in her life. And it's just, and also that opening scene of Halloween 2, the realities of the final girl, we don't often get to see this. And if you remember, it's all of her actual physical injuries of her surviving her. I've got chills because I thought it was so good. She's got a broken arm, bruises, cuts. She's in surgery. And I'm like, because we don't see that. We don't see the actual aftermath. Sometimes we see the emotional aftermath, but we don't see the actual physical harm that comes to our final girls and what makes them essentially what happens to them and what makes them survive the night and what they have to get through, like their adrenaline and everything to survive. It's just incredible. And I was so happy to revisit it. And the death of Annie is very impactful to me. I think it's very emotional. It's very devastating. It's very sad.
Especially because she made it in the first film.
She did.
And then
Yes.
so to have her die in the second film, we're like, fuck, that sucks.
It really does. And it's just like, that was Laurie's best friend, her confidant, the one that understood everything she was going through. To have her be killed by Michael Myers again. To have her killed off by Michael Myers is just.
Yeah, like because she almost thought she had lost her the first time, but then to have it actually happen the second time. No, and and I'm not going to disagree with you. These two films, like from my recollection, they were much more emotional. Like they were much more like, oh wow, like this is what this experience would be like if you were experiencing like someone stalking you and coming after you and constantly, just trying to murder you, and you're just trying to survive that situation.
Yeah.
And so like I totally agree with you. To me, it gets a little once again, it gets inconsistent, and I'm like, why did you change the story? Like I feel it's like, and this what happens again. This is why I had problems with, and the three new ones are coming up. It's like they're trying to replicate the originals, almost like the style of like the night it happens, what happens in the night, what happens after. But we need to add in the reasoning as to why Michael Myers is what he is, and we're like, how about he is what he is, and we just deal with that. But they keep trying to we can kill him so many times and we'll never kill him, and there's a supernatural element to it. And I'm just like, wipe out the supernatural element to Michael Myers, and that's fine with me. That works with me.
But then why is he still alive? Like there has to be a reason, because if you are a human person, if you're shot 6 times, most likely you're gonna die, depending where those gunshots are hitting your body. But there's gonna be a reason why. There's gotta be a reason why Jason Voorhees continues to come. So as much as I understand your distaste for it, there has to be a reason. So, I mean, there has to be a reason why this person who started as a human being, who was birthed from a person, can withstand being burned alive, drowned. I'm going into Jason Voorhees here, but stabbed 100 times, face bashed in, and all of this stuff. There has to be a reason. Evil wouldn't just keep your body going. That would then be supernatural.
But okay, and correct me. He does die in Rob Zombie's too. Like there is it's been a while. Like it's been like 3 or 4 years since I rewatched that one. So
you didn't rewatch these movies? Come on. I'm kidding. I guess in theory he dies. We don't get any more Rob Zombie films. He might have finished it off. So he must die in that. But she bashes his fucking face in. He was stabbed many times.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
In the first one. Like she's bashing his face in.
Yeah.
But he lives, and he's fine to kill another day, to slay another day. There has to be a reason, or that wouldn't make any sense. If you're a human being.
Do they go into the reason in the second film? Like, did
no.
Did his mother have sex with the devil? And like, see, that's why you never explain that. He just keeps coming back and just keeps coming after her. And you're like, but what? Yes. Okay, did they do medical experiments on him in the institution that he was in to make him invincible? Like, what makes Michael Myers invincible? They don't explain.
Maybe. So there has to be a reason. I know you're not liking the reasons we're providing, but there has to be a reason.
I'm not. Give me a reason why this person keeps coming and traumatizing Laurie.
Not a person. It's the patriarchy, Jess. Come on.
Oh, that's true. The shape. Yes.
Right?
Michael Myers is the patriarchy.
Yep. We talked about that in our episode. Anyway, so let's jump into the final part of this discussion, which are the reboots by David Gordon Green. So our most recent iterations and visions of Michael Myers and the Halloween franchise. So these ones it starts in the 2018 version. We call it H40 for making it quick and easy to say. It's also just called Halloween.
Yeah.
So it starts 40 years after the OG. So it removes all canon, everything that's been created before, again, create their own vision. Again, that's what happens with reboots, remakes. It's going to be your own vision, your own kind of like spin on it. I would say I don't like that they removed all canon. And I'll also say that these are my least favorite of all iterations. These new ones are my least favorite. I love Rob Zombie. I love the OG series. I do not love these movies. There's lots of problems with them that I don't like. And one of the main ones is you removed all interesting, relevant canon. Mainly, you take the family aspect of it. I will not believe that a man who just randomly killed off Laurie Strode's
random serial killer one night, just going around killing people and becomes fixated on the one that got away.
No.
Well, that's literally what Michael Myers is in that Halloween H4O whatever. It's he gets out, he's just obsessed on getting the one that got away.
Yep.
Okay.
Well,
that's a patriarchy, I guess, because men get obsessed about women that they got the one that got away. Fuck.
So and so I have seen 2018 version twice. I liked it better the second time. If I remove my issues about it being removing all canon as its own slasher movie, I thought it was good. Fine. I was fine. I was like, this is good. I rewatched it because I wrote a piece about modern final girls and modern day slashers and stuff like that. But I liked it more the second time around. Would I go back and rewatch it? No. Last night I watched Halloween Kills for the first time, I
felt for you.
A couple of thoughts around this new series is, well, again, it removes, to me anyways, all the darkness and the intrigue of the original series. It lacks style. It lacks voice. At least Rob Zombie had his own style. He had his own story to tell. And again, his own just filmmaking director's style.
Yeah.
We know Rob Zombie movies because we can see that from a mile away. The OG series had a different style, its own style. Again, it was very like
John Carpenter style type, like.
Exactly. They tried to kind of keep that simplistic aesthetic and simplistic
style aesthetic, 2000s aesthetic, those teens aesthetic, right?
Yes. But this new series, it lacks a lot of things. It lacks a lot. And the other thing, when I was watching it, the bad dialogue. Where is my Deborah Hill dialogue? Oh my God. Who wrote this?
I literally, when I watched Halloween Kills, I literally gave it a 2-star review on Letterboxd, and literally my review was, that was something. I cringed.
It is a movie that exists. It is.
Throughout the entirety of the film. I was like, what is happening? Also, like you said, they throw out canon, but then they bring it back in Halloween Kills.
Yes, they bring back all of these OG characters. I was like, okay, so this is my thoughts too on this. This is so relevant because I just watched it, and it's also a newer movie. So they have all these bells and whistles, right? John Carpenter's back to update his score, the homage to even Season of the Witch. We've got Laurie Strode. She's back again.
We got children actors are back.
We got Tommy Doyle's back, the nurse from just that one scene at the beginning of the OG movie. Lindsay Wallace is back. So we bring back familiar faces, familiar characters. So I feel like it has all these bells and whistles to be like, look at all these nods to the original. But
the original house is back.
Yes, yeah. So it has all these bells and whistles without the substance. It has no tofu on its plate, right?
There's no payoff. You watch it and you're like, well, that was a movie.
Yep. And you're like, that's great. Okay. And then also, sorry, there's so many things about it that I really didn't like. But except Michael Myers as a character, I think he just did a massive disservice to the franchise, to Michael Myers, The Shape, and Laurie Strode in these new movies.
Oh, they do, yeah.
Michael Myers evades police, and how he does that is because he's stealthy. What was this massive, drawn out, like Mortal Kombat style killing with all the firefighters?
Oh my.
Absolutely not.
That-
Absolutely not.
Oh, and then it gets better later on when you see it later at the end when the whole mob of people at the end of the film trying to kill Michael Myers, and you're like, why are you doing this?
Why? Also, with him, he just has a kitchen knife, folks, and he's now killed all of you. It's not believable.
No, it's not.
It's not believable. So many aspects of it. And what I'll say, there's aspects of it that I liked. They bring in the town. They're like, we're fucking annoyed by, and we're so, well, they call it an infection. Michael Myers has infected the town, which you can imagine this small town has been repeatedly traumatized by Michael Myers as this serial killer, right? However, it would have been more powerful and made more sense if they had not erased aspects of Halloween 2, 4, 5, and H2O.
But yet they tried to recreate elements of Halloween 2 in Halloween Kills. Laurie's in the hospital. Michael's going to try and get her at the hospital.
Yeah.
The town, like even in Halloween 2, the town, like the original Halloween 2,
yes.
the town does get involved and are like, we're fucking sick of this. What is going on? And they start like attacking the Myers house.
Yeah.
Well, of course, the townspeople are going to do that. They try to do that scene in the hospital. And I hate it because you don't even get any of Laurie Strode, at least in the original Halloween 2. Like, Laurie, we get Laurie, even though it's in the hospital and she's drugged up and stuff like that. We did not get much of her in the second one at all. You know, and especially if you want to make this big deal about it. But then even then, you do disservice to her granddaughter, who's supposed to be like the new torchbearer of the Strode family.
Yeah, it did a lot of things poorly.
Yeah.
Also, fucking so saccharine. Like the chanting, the bad dialogue. It's kind of
Evil
cheesy.
dies tonight. Evil dies tonight. Oh
No,
my God.
No. So it didn't work for me. That's what I'll say, is that it didn't work for me. I can appreciate aspects of it, like the opening titles. They come back, like John Carpenter's score is back. The score is generally good, sometimes a little over top for me. The font, it's hitting on things that like, I feel like they hit on things that they think the fans want to see, and some of it fans do. And I know you believe this, is that overall this franchise is very divisive. People get very defensive. We've seen that with Halloween Ends. Holy fuck.
Watching everything that's unfolding right now with Halloween Ends, like people who love it, people who hate it, and it's like we knew I knew this was going to happen with Halloween Ends. It's going to be divisive. Will I see the film? Yes, I will more than likely see the film on my own when I'm ready. I was burned by Halloween Kills, so I don't have high hopes for Halloween Ends.
Yeah.
Because I feel like what they should have done, like I liked Halloween in 2018 when it came out. It was a fine movie. And I was like, you know what? Fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this. It was entertaining. Thank you. But then, because like, I'm like, maybe this is their reimagining. This is like Rob Zombie. They're reimagining this film for a new generation. We're trying to be more politically correct. We're trying to have more different themes in these films, be more overt about the whole idea of women surviving trauma and fighting against her. But then they decide to bring the canon back into Halloween Kills, and it sounds like what they're trying to do with Halloween Ends and like cram it all back together and being like, well, now your vision, your original vision is now completely gone, or you're trying to bring your original vision in with the canon stuff and you're just mishing it all together and it doesn't work. Like, choose a lane. Like, at least with the Rob Zombie remakes, like you said, it's Rob Zombie's vision. It's a reimagining. It went a different direction with the story, but it kind of works. My issue with that is that they try to bring the supernatural element in and it doesn't work again. So it's like, and I guess they try to fix that in Halloween, the supernatural element, and just be like, he's just a serial killer and that's what he is. But then, like you said, they try to bring canon back in and it doesn't work. Fox, it's not working.
It doesn't. Because I'm morbidly curious and a completionist, I will eventually see what I think is probably going to be a trash fire of Halloween Ends, because fuck, I want it to end. Like, I don't at the ending of Kills, like, I don't even know where they're going to go. Where do you go from here? You've also killed, and I think killed, Laurie's daughter.
Yep.
Great.
What's that about?
Yeah, the most interesting character of the series so far, I think, in the new movies. So think it's time to round this out, but
Mhm.
with some closing statements. Jess, do you want to start? Final thoughts, closing statements on why you think the Halloween franchise as a whole is overrated. Anything new you want to add?
I feel like this is a franchise that tends to just really let fans down from time to time. Like you know, and you really have to pick what you really love about it. And to me, that's why I feel like it's an overrated franchise, because it's like there's just not a complete set to it. It just doesn't satisfy me in the way that you know, Friday the 13th satisfies me, or the way Nightmare on Elm Street satisfies me. And it's unfortunate that's the case, because there are some good high points and high elements and things that we've talked about, and we talked about in our podcast episode, that's really interesting about this series. But to me, like I said, and I will stand by this statement, I would rather watch any Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street film over a Halloween film, because I'm just not going to get it's never going to be satisfactory to me in the end.
And you want to be
what I feel.
satisfied by
I
your movie
want
watching experiences.
satisfaction.
Is that so much to ask for?
It's not guaranteed with Michael Myers. Michael Myers' satisfaction not guaranteed.
Ooh, the shape. Shaping up not to be satisfactory.
Your comments.
Yeah. I love that we agree on these new films, because we haven't really talked about it much. And also I just watched Halloween Kills last night. So it's like super fresh in my mind. And I'm
to see you.
I'm super passionate about it, it seems. I have whatever. Okay, closing statement. Halloween is a franchise. I think it has its high points, its low points. Some of its high points I think are very high, like I said, which make up for the low points. It has various iterations, various renditions, various things going on. But overall, I think it's a really interesting and great franchise that has something for everyone. OG series, Rob Zombie, this new series that a lot of people do seem to be liking. Great. Not for me. Yeah. And not everything's going to be for everyone. And that's fine. Exactly. Do we need to get mad about it? No. Nope. That's why Jess and I have these wonderful friendly debates, because we don't always agree on things. And who cares? If we all had the same opinions, it'd be very boring. And if Jess and I had the same opinions, I don't think our dynamic duo would be as dynamic.
No, exactly.
Halloween franchise overall is perfect for spooky season. It's not Halloween until I'm watching Halloween movies. And again, the final point, yes, is it continues on with this like legacy and themes of violence against women, because violence against women also carries on. And a final point is to check out our very wonderful episode on the Halloween series, at least the original to number 5. I think it's one of our best, and I think we bring some really interesting points to light that not a lot of people are talking about. So Halloween.
Awesome. There you go. Our special Halloween episode on Halloween.
Folks, the next episode, not sure what it'll be on. If you have any ideas that any movies, series, franchises, favorite sequels, whatever you want us to have a friendly debate on, please let us know. We're always looking for fresh new ideas. But our next mini-sode would be a Spinsters Get Current. Which movie? I don't know. We'll see what's currently happening when that...
And what we have access to, because I am livid that I cannot get Hellraiser.
Exactly. So
I'm in Canada.
We'll see what we have access to in the next couple of months, and we'll have a Spinsters Get Current episode for you. But until then, folks, happy Halloween. Stay spooky. Watch more horror movies.
Happy Halloween, everyone. Bye.